Guys, I'm just gonna say it. I think we should kill Monami. She's fucking in on it. She's here to play prison warden. Her pops is the one who runs the place, and she's here to play guard. We use class to remove the manhole cover, revealing a dark hole lined by a concrete tube. I reached out behind me as I stared into the gaping maw. I promptly illuminated the hole with a flashlight I had been handed. Damn, it's deeper than I was expecting. The interior of the concrete tube was adorned by poor excuses for handrails. Have I seen? Yeah. He did keep his daughter down. The odds of that were very high if Akiyuki Naraka was indeed a serial killer. True. Eiji descended through the narrow hole. Came to a stop when his toes emerged from the tube, where he started losing balance again, and shone his flashlight down. However, nothing there was moving as far as he could see. The bottom of the ladder rocked back and forth around the end of the hole, hovering around 2 meters above the floor. Eiji figured that getting back up wouldn't pose a challenge. Surveyed the area and noticed an aged wooden table. Good. Use that as a foothold. I'll make getting out of here even simpler. Eiji pocketed the flashlight and resumed his descent with that thought. His body shimmied back and forth with each step he took down the ladder. Below him was a rather spacious chamber. The hole he descended through was at the top of a dome-shaped ceiling. It was situated above what was essentially this tunnel of a room's dead center. Rows of sturdy doors adorned the walls, indicating this place had indeed once been a munitions depot. Part of a wall was collapsed and leaking soil. Judging from the relative position of the wall to the hill, it's probably right around the location of the main house. A conspicuously large door sat at the end of the tunnel. Reggie had assumed it would be sealed off with dirt, judging from the way it sounded outside. It was probably a double-layered door instead. Reggie grabbed the bottom of the ladder and hunched diagonally as his feet found purchase on the floor. There was a light bulb hanging from the ceiling, but the illumination it offered was absolutely pitiful. Reggie retrieved his flashlight once again and scanned his surroundings. However, not even a mouse scurried out from cover in response to Reggie's calls. He must be hiding behind those doors. All of a sudden, he heard a stone being thrown. Seemed whoever was in this place wasn't sure if he was friend or foe. Now, that wasn't exactly unreasonable, after they'd been down here for so long. However, it did come off as odd to Reiji. Figured girls their age should have been more relieved than wary to hear help had arrived. Is there more to this that I'm not getting? Yeah! Fucking Monami. Reiji couldn't see who was throwing stones, but he could more or less tell where the stones were coming from. Namely, a slightly ajar door close to the edge of the tunnel. That has to be where they're hiding. Reiji started regretting not bringing a uniformed cop with him to let them know he could be trusted. It was with that thought in mind they looked at the hole in the ceiling. Suddenly he heard a block of wood drop to the floor right behind him. When he turned around, he found a teary-eyed girl looking right up at him. The longer they held each other's gaze, the more tears cascaded down her cheeks. Reiji crouched down until he was right at eye level with the girl, clearly worn down by her plight. The girl hugged him and wept with relief. Reiji hugged her back and tousled her hair. She was shivering ever so slightly, likely from the cold and malnutrition. And so Reiji took off his coat and was about to put it on her, when another girl shouted Iraha and came rushing out from behind, from the ajar door Reiji had noticed earlier. The girl named Iraha shifted her puffy eyes from Reiji to the other girl, muttering, "Manami?" A moment later, the girl she referred to as Manami raised her arm and threw a rock. Reiji instantly turned his back to Manami and shielded Iraha. The sharp rock, a piece of concrete, hit Reiji, but barely hurt due to Manami's skinny arms. Reiji put his coat on Iraha before turning around to face Manami. However, Manami refused to listen to Reiji and threw a piece of debris next. Reiji slowly approached her, taking care to ensure Iraha didn't get caught in the onslaught. Narako. Manami shook her head. Oh, are you sure about that? Manami attempted to retreat back into the room she'd been hiding in. The long-haired girl emerged from the open door at that exact moment. Her almond eyes took stock of Reiji. She must have been sick, considering how flushed her cheeks were. Haruka, Ira called out. She continued hiding behind Reiji's back, eyes focused on the new girl. Reiji asked her in a whisper if anyone else was there, but Ira simply shook her head. It seemed it was just those three girls. It's always been just the three of them down here? Or were there more at first?
Haruka-chan.
Haruka took a few steps forward when Reiji beckoned her over, only for Manami to grab her arm. It seemed she was still cautious of Reiji. Or perhaps that was only to be expected. Reiji was more concerned about the poor shape Haruka was in. He repositioned himself under the hole in the ceiling after determining it'd be the best to call for backup.
Oi! 3人を見つけたから何人か降りてきてくれ!
Ozumi shouted back to Reiji. That settled, Reiji's first order of business was ensuring the girls got out safe and sound. However, Manami chose that moment to slam into him. Of course, she completely failed to topple him over, given he was a grown man and she was just a little girl. However, Reiji still felt a sharp pain run through his thigh. Looked down and found there was a giant tear in his trousers. Manami was clutching a sharpened stone as if she were wielding a knife. Ira noticed and turned around just when she was about to attend to Haruka, rushing toward Manami instead. Manami swung her arm right into Ira's face. Ira screamed and covered her face, falling to the ground. Reiji grabbed Manami's arms. Fortunately, he managed to knock the stone right out of her hand. Manami started thrashing around like a rabid animal. Though her blows barely hurt Reiji, she was proving far too much for him to handle. Damn it, what do I do? Can't get serious and slam her into the ground. Reiji looked up to find Ayumu descending from the ceiling. Ayumu wasted no time grabbing Manami's arms and pinning her down. With Manami in good hands, Reiji hurried over to Ira. Sitting on the floor as she nursed her face. There was blood spilling between her fingers. As Reiji took a handkerchief out of the coat he'd given her, gingerly moved her blood-stained hand out of the way, and applied the cloth to her forehead. Ira then urged Reiji to give his coat to Haruka instead, since she had a cold, to which he agreed. As he got up, headed over to Haruka, and who was seated by the door in a daze. She looked up and thanked him. Haruka Tamara. The girl feebly nodded. So she's Sei Maizono's daughter, huh? Reiji felt her forehead to find that it was indeed hot. He then put his coat over her shoulders and lifted her up.
Masaki.
Fortunately, Masaki happened to come down right at that moment, so Reiji handed her off to him. Reiji then raced over to Ayumu. She was carrying Manami while restraining the little girl in question. Fortunately, Manami wasn't putting up a fight anymore, having probably tuckered herself out. One of her shoes had fallen off. Though Reiji suspected there was more to it than just that, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no. Manami was in on it. That's why she's like, oh, don't fear the guy who comes down from the hole. And then the moment new people showed up, it's like, oh no, don't trust them. They're not our usual hole person. They couldn't possibly be here to help us. Yeah, they don't fucking trust you, Manami. Went back outside once the girls were brought to the surface. Have we seen this? Yes. Yeah. That's kind of yeah, you gotta figure that when you realize that Manami's door was always unlocked, whereas Haruka and Ira's were not. The fact that, Haruka had a whole ass bed to herself, had like a decent setup, was able to access the rooms on her own. Yeah, no. Something's up with Manami. She's the prison warden. Her parents come down and like drop off the food and whatnot, but she's the one that runs that bitch. There's on a whole different level from sending your child to their room for being naughty. Emu glanced at a squad car that was driving away. Manami was probably riding in it. Suddenly, everything before me flashed white. Quickly realized that a camera was to blame. Emu tried to go after them, but I stopped her.
刑事に暴力を振るわれたって記事になるからね。
That had been true long before I was a cop, while I was a cop, and would probably stay true for ages to come.
それもそうですね。
Emma strolled over to the girls. Seemed she was going to take them to the ambulances. Amos's revolving light shone red as they drove away.
さてと。
They returned to the barn that was the current focal point of the investigation. Generator cables were now sticking into the
どう
manhole.
だ。
仕切られた小部屋からフラン死体の痕跡が見つかった。鑑定はまだだが、ここから持ち出したのは間違いないようだな。
ただそうなると、やはり外に出した理由が気になるな。
匂いがひどくなったからじゃねえのか？冬とはいえ、あれだけ腐っていれば大変なことになるだろう。
His way of showing mercy to the girls he was keeping captive, maybe? Nah, it's just ridiculous.
ざっと調べさせたところ、他に人は残っていないようだな。それ
Yeah.
と、一箇所だけやけに小綺麗な
One
部
of
屋
the
がある。
rooms looked very nice, neat, and tidy. Almost as if one of the girls was receiving preferable treatment.
おそらく娘が使っていたんだろう。
はあ、よくわからねえな、ったく。
A lot.
俺にだってわからね
It's probably about 20. What was about 27 meters long in total? Oh, the shoe.
え。そういや、前の事件の時に何かあったな。
The pit body shoe mark. Oh. Oh shit. Now that we have a better understanding of Monami and whatnot, yeah, no, that shoe mark was because I guess something was going on with that girl, and Monami fucking put the screws to her. Right, the shoe mark on the decomposed corpse's face. Perhaps that mark had in fact been made by the shoe's owner, Monami
魚
Nadeko.
住、前の事件の資料はあるか？
ん？おう、ここにあるか？
Took the photographs of the corpse out of the envelope Ozmi retrieved from his bag and compared them to the back of the shoe,
似てるな。
particularly the wave pattern on the shoe's sole.
それってと、鳴子まなみが仏を踏みつけたのか？
そうかもしれないな。
Yeah. An idea sprang to mind, one that I really didn't want to believe.
鳴子秋行に事情を聞くのは明日にしてくれよ。
分かってるよ。
It was already late enough as it stood.
ああ、そうだ、まさき。お前、明日になったら府中に行って、娘さんの無事を伝えておけよ。
あ、それはも
Masaki nodded.
じゃあ、俺は病院寄ったから帰ることにするわ。
そういえば、お前さんも怪我してたんだったな。
Ozmi looked at the new hole in my pants.
いや、これはただのかすり傷だよ。朽木病院へ連れて行ったんだろ。
そのはずだが、聴取は明日以降にしてくれよ。
心配するな。ちょっと確認したいことがあるだけだよ。
Yeah, I'm just checking something, Ozmi. Just checking something. Chapter 8. See, now this is where things get a little different. Because beforehand, everything's just like, oh yeah, it's all wrapped up. You know, we told Sei that her daughter's back, everything's good to go. And oh, look at this, Masuki and Yukari have a moment. I think this is where like things get truly different. Drove over to Kichiki Hospital. There wasn't anyone around, seeing as it was night. That said, I'd expected as much after all these years, thus headed straight for the late night entrance located at the edge of the parking lot without missing a beat. At first, the hospital seemed just as deserted on the inside as the outside. It was long before I was corrected of my misconception.
時坂先生、
What's up? For I quickly found Ayumu sitting on a bench in the waiting room.
あの子たちは？
ご家族に付き添われて、今日は一晩こちらに泊まって様子を見るそうです。
Ayumu suddenly fell silent and glanced behind me. Turned around to find Humiya approaching us. You!
う。時坂さん。
You! I got questions, fucker. Reiji doesn't know that he has questions right now, but believe me, I got questions for you, fucko. You.
こんばんは、海谷さん。
どうも。
Yeah, why are you so nervous, bud? Humiya bowed. Looks somewhat glum.
何かありましたか？
Yeah, some trouble in you, bud? Some trouble in you?
それが先ほど搬送された子たちの検査をしたのですが、その結果で一人の血液型
I
が
remember that being
ボンベイ型と判明したん
mentioned
で
at
す。
some point. I forget the context of it. Bombay blood was an extremely rare subset of type O blood that had only been discovered a dozen years ago. Yes. Fuck. I'm trying to think of like what the context was, because I remember when we learned about this. I believe it was during the second game, because I believe that's how. Because I remember we saw like the blood. Fuck, was it? I know there was at one point in the second game where there was like Reiji got like the blood tests back, like, or like the blood types back of the Hinagami families, the Hinagami family and the Kuroya families, and that's how he devised that, Ayato and Karen were actually the children of Naori's dad. Oh, fuck, when was Bombay blood mentioned? I'm trying to remember the context in which that was mentioned, though. Not only was it what her blood type had been. Okay. Her blood type. Gotcha. That must have been where I heard it then. I guess it was during the first game. I'm assuming after Toko's accident and she needed like blood transfusions. And they were like, oh, but she has an incredibly rare blood type. But I was also pretty sure I knew which girl Fumio was referring to. Yeah, it'd be Iraha. Like, we know Haruka is Sei's daughter. We know that Manami is the Naruko daughter. There's only one guess left.
ええ、そうです。
やはりそうですか。
I had a feeling it'd come to this. It all started shortly after I'd learned Naoto Kuroya had been in the area. Specifically, I found it odd that the Nauticos had believed him suspicious, yet the Saigasas, who lived even closer to his neighborhood than him, never so much as even mentioned him. Mr. Saigasa also told Masaki that he couldn't imagine Naoto would be the one responsible for kidnapping Iraha when she was shown a sketch, from what I'd been informed. If this all meant what I thought it did, there was something else I needed to confirm.
文也さん、山之内先生は今いらっしゃい。
ええ、呼んできましょうか。
いや、こちらから伺います。佐藤さんもここで待っていてくれ。
わかりました。
I wanted to keep my conversation with Koharu as private as possible. Thus, I headed over to her office all on my own.
失礼します。
時坂さん、どうかなさいましたか？
Koharu cocked her head curiously when she opened the door and saw me.
山之内先生にお聞きしたいことがありまして。
何でしょうか？あ、どうぞおかけになってください。
すみません。
Sitting on the sofa helped me regain my cool.
今お茶を入れしますね。
いえ、お構いなく。
私が飲みたいんですよ。それに口を湿らせた方が
Koharu went over to her heater and poured hot water from the kettle atop it into a teapot before I could even get a word in.
少しぬるいかもしれませんが、どうぞ。
ありがとうございます。
Took a sip from the teacup Koharu offered me. I unconsciously sighed.
先ほど搬送された子のことですか？
I nearly dropped the
ボン
teacup.
ベイ型だったそうですね。朽木さんと同じ。
山之内先生はトークさんのことをどこまで
I braced myself. This was what I'd come to ask her in the first place, after all.
妊娠されていて、そのために事故後あのような処置を取ったことは承知しています。時坂さん。
Both of us knew exactly what it was we were leaving unsaid.
そうでしたか。
Yeah, the fact that you piped down a teenager. Koharu rose from the sofa and headed to her
ボン
desk.
ベイ型の母親からボンベイ型の子が生まれることはあまりありません。両親ともにボンベイ型であるならばともかく、ほとんどの日本人は赤血球に H 抗原というものを持ち、この下に A や B の抗原がついて、
I quietly waited as Koharu returned with a book in
ボンベイ
hand.
型は この H 抗原の代わりに劣性 H 抗原がある状態なのです。 H 抗原についている型を見て血液型を判別するため、劣性 H 抗原についている抗原が何であろうと何もない状態、すなわち O 型と判別されてしまうのがボンベイ型なんです。
つまり俺が相手では無理だと。
I found that idea preposterous, but I was incapable of bottling up my doubt. It was Fumia, wasn't it? It was Fumia, wasn't it? Oh my fucking god, no. No! No fucking way. No fucking way. No fucking way. Oh, fuck. No. No fucking way. I was praying, hoping that Fumia didn't cross a line with her. Clear, but, I mean, fuck. Well, what I expect. He'd already been getting away with fucking his sister for well over a decade. What was to fucking stop him from going at his adopted daughter at that point? Oh my god. Oh my god. No. 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 Oh no.
可能性がないわけではありません。時坂さんの
Okay,
血液
no,
型
not necessarily.
大型です。
でしたら、ボンベイ型でなくとも劣性 H 抗原がある HHOO ということが考え
Okay,
ら
so
れ
it's
ます。
possible, 3G.
私も遺伝学は専門ではありませんが、時
No.
坂さんが血液検査をなさればはっきりする。
それは
I stared at my hand, at the vein running through my wrist. It bulged with my tendons when I made a fist. Yeah, I think the question is, do you really want the answer to that question? Honestly, I would go for it, but the guide says I should tell him to think it over.
しばらく考えさせてください。
Should I bring the truth to light or not? Even have a clear answer to that question. Fuck though. Fuck though. No. 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 And that's the thing, Toko believed it was Reiji's baby as well. I know from like the brief moments in 2 we caught a little bit of like Toko's internal monologue while she was in that cabin right before she passed. Like she believes that's the Reiji's baby as well. But it isn't, is it? That's why the right answer is to not get the blood test. That's why the right answer is to not get the blood test. No! No!
フミヤさん、三枝さんのご両親は問題ですか？
No! Fuck no!
これは事件の聞き込みです。逃走中の犯人につながる重要な手がかりですから。
What a crock of shit. This was solely to serve my own ends.
ご両親、どちらか片方で構いません。
Fumia turned around and trudged down the hallway.
時坂先生、
I held up my hand to Ayame after she called my name.
悪い。少しだけ。
わかりました。
I slumped down onto the bench after Ayame left. Is this her? Is she really the girl I've been searching for all these years? I had circumstantial evidence to support it, but no solid proof. In my heart of hearts, though, I had a hunch. But even if that hunch was correct, I believe she was better off not knowing the truth. Oh, fuck. Now that she's been adopted into a family, it's better not to. Oh. tell me that's how it all ends. No, I know I still have a few more days in game before there's any credits rolling, and there's still a true ending to see, but no. No. Don't tell me that's how it ends. After all this, like, obviously the best ending is that the girl lives happily ever after. She's the one who's most important in all of this, but no. She had her own life now, her own family. I had no right getting in the way of any of that.
お待たせしました。
Fumi returned just then with Mitsuo Saigasa in tow.
どうも。
I rose to my feet and bowed to the ladder.
娘に何かあったんですか？
いくつか質問したいことがあります。今回の事件と直接の関わりはないのですが。
今は娘のそばにいてやりたいんです。
Rather reasonable request, really.
そうしたいのは山々なのですが。
Oh, you are so full of shit, Reiji. You're just being a selfish prick right now. Nothing more.
申し訳ありません。
And yet, all I could do was press on in spite of my self-loathing. I let Mitsuo have a seat on the
ま
bench.
ず娘さんの血液型についてですが。
ええ、ボンベイ型だとか。
Mitsuo nodded.
そのようですね。フミヤさん、彼女は怪我をしていましたが、輸血などはされましたか？
Turned to Fumiya, who loomed over us a few steps away.
そこまでの怪我ではありませんでした。傷も残らないと思います。
ボンベイ型の血液が保管されているんですか？
ええ。確認されているボンベイ型の血液を持つ方に献血をお願いしています。
If they'd had a system like that 8 years ago, she might still be around. It was all spilled milk at this point.
だが、それが何だと？
担当直入にお尋ねします。三枝さん。
隠していても仕方のないことだが、知り合いから里子として預かったんだ。
Mitsuo ended up being completely forthcoming, possibly because he'd realized I could have just checked his family register to find out the truth. What was this about an acquaintance,
そ
though?
の知り合いというのは、
ひながみあやとと名乗っていた。
Fumiya so look at my face. Uh-huh. So he did he?
とても彼らしいですね。
He could do nothing but chuckle sardonically in response. After all, there's no way that was the real Ayato Hinagami. That is to say, Tomoki Masuki could have given him Iraha.
佐藤さん、奴の似顔絵はある？
はい。
Ayamu, who'd been watching our conversation from the sidelines, retrieved the sketch from her investigation bag.
一度見ていると思いますが。
ええ、そうです。
Mitsuo nodded when he saw Naori's sketch.
詳しく聞かせてもらえますか？
ですが、一体なぜ？
彼はひながみあやとという名ではなく、黒谷直りと言います。6年前にあった事件に深く関わり。
そうだったのか。
Mitsuo heaved a deep sigh.
彼がうちを訪れたのは6年前の今頃です。子供を抱え行くあてがないということでしたので。
子供のことは何と？
知り合いの沢城さんという方から預かっているという話でした。それで自分では育てられないから。
So he actually did keep his word to Nanako Sawashiro, huh? The child in question was...
沢城七子については？
いや、詳しくはあの子の本当の母親ではないと彼から聞いた。
So he even told the truth about that, did he?
時坂さん。
Fumiya's lips were quivering. He was the one who told me Iraha had Bombay blood. And as such, he too must have realized exactly whose daughter she was.
あんたは何を知っているんだ？
Another reasonable question.
自分は黒谷直りが罪を犯し。
That was the only answer I could give him. I had all the proof I needed. It didn't sound like he was lying either. Still, I didn't dare tell him any of it. I didn't have the right. What gall would I have to even consider it after all these years?
何がどうあれ、あの子は三枝家の娘さんです。
ああ、 その通りだ。
Mitsuo nodded. Yes, that's for the best. That's the way things should be. Her life wasn't mine to uproot and tear away from her.
時坂さん、
すみません、文也さん。山之内先生に伝言を頼めますか。
I passed my request on to Fumiya, for I feared I'd change my mind were I to see her again.
私はこれで失礼します。
God damn. God damn. I dropped by the MPD the next afternoon.
おう、遅えぞレイジ。
Ozumi sat at the reception area, a mountain of paperwork stacked on the table.
どうせ午前中に来たって聴取しかしてないだろう。だったらいろいろ揃ってからの方がいいさ。
ちっ、こっちはろくに寝てやしねえってのによ。
俺だってまともに寝てはいないさ。で、何か出たか。
He sat at the couch opposite Ozumi's.
軽トラの荷台から血液反応のある毛布の繊維片が見つかった。仏を包んでいたのと同じやつだ。
Ozumi handed me the report.
それと鳴子聡子の供述がいくつかある。自分の娘も含めた少女たちを監禁していたのは認めた。
Did that mean her husband had forced her to go along with it? Or perhaps he'd even threatened her?
鳴子秋行については前と変わらねえな。誘拐監禁、
Yeah, no,
死体遺
his
棄は認
daughter
めてい
did
る
that.
が殺人だけは認めちゃいねえ。
そこなんだよな。
In fact, been nagging at me for a whole day now.
今のままでも検察官送致はできるが殺人罪での起訴ができなくなると。
Ozumi subjected me to his grousing.
前園生の時もそうだったな。拘束期限を特例で延長して。
なんだ、
結局、鳴子秋行が最初の死体を天罰の天使にしたのは何だったんだ。
そういややっこさんに聞いてなかったな。記者だったからあれを知っていたのはわかるが、
問題はなぜあれを作ったのかだ。
確認してみる。
Ozumi got off the couch, shuffled over to the nearest phone. Probably dying someplace else in the building if I had to
お
guess.
お、わかった。
Good. Sounds like I'm gonna get my shot.
よし、じゃあ行くぞ。
I opened up a folding chair and took a seat at the empty interrogation room.
鳴子聡子はまだ病院か。
ああ、佐藤が聴取に行っている。監禁されていた娘の聞き取りも頼んであるが。
ま、焦らずにやってもらえばいいさ。
It was then the door opened, revealing Akiyuki under the watchful eye of a
お
cop.
はようございます。
どうも。
Akiyuki bowed before taking a seat as per his escort's instructions.
さて、鳴子さん、
はい
Akiyuki gulped.
死体損壊罪に関することです。あの河原に放置されていた少女の遺体。
あれが6年前の事件の模倣ってことは分かってんだ。
Fuck! They
お前
finally
さんが
asked
それを知り
why!
得る立場だったってこともな。
それは
Akiyuki's gaze restlessly drifted all around the room.
鳴子さん、あれがあなたの仕業だというのは。
はい、地下から運び出して。
だからそこでなんであんな真似したのかって聞いてる
Shut
んだ
up,
よ。
Ozumi.
魚住。
Pinned Ozmi's fist down just after he punched the table.
鳴子さん、あなたがあのような加工をしたおかげで我々が捜査に加わることになったんですよ。
それは
Akiyuki bowed. That's not what I'm looking for. They probably meant that genuinely. It really was taking all my willpower not to slug him in the face. I didn't, though. Not just because I'd look like the world's biggest hypocrite after telling Ozumi, but because I couldn't have this interrogation turning into a circus.
ただの死体遺棄であればあなたまでたどり着けなかったかもしれない。
そうですね。
Akiyuki kept his head hung. Something's not right here. The Akiyuki being meek as a lamb was only to be expected from when he was at the wrong end of the interrogation room. Something about him just felt bizarre. Was it because I'd caught him smiling for that split second when he lowered his head?
だからなんでそんなことしたんだって聞いてんだろ。それともあれか。
Evidence, huh? Even if his fingerprints had been on her skin, it would have been next to impossible to actually pull them off her body. So then maybe she'd had some kind of wound that would need to hide, like one distinctly belonging to a weapon that would have led straight to him. Or maybe he'd been afraid of us recovering the victim's fingerprints themselves. Neither one of those added up, though. After all, he would have just had to get rid of her hands or arms in those cases. We'd gone out of his way to recreate the angel from Exile of Paradise. But why? To attract attention to the murder.
あなたはこの事件自体が注目を浴びるようにしたかったのですか?
Oh. Oh, no, he's cooking. Akiyuki's not the mastermind. He's just another piece of the puzzle. There's someone behind the scenes of Akiyuki. That's what Reiji's getting at. Okay. Cook, homie. Cook. He wanted to draw attention to it because he was hoping for a way to break the cycle. Okay. Akiyuki gasped.
6年前の事件とつながりがあるように見せかけて世間の注目を集める。
Which, as we'd stated earlier, was how he'd been in a position to learn about the angel wings on the bodies, even though those were never leaked to the public.
そうか。注目を浴びればいいだけだから。
Ozumi slapped his knees.
おそらく2人目の死体は腐敗がひどくなってきたから捨てたというだけなのだろう。
Especially since his own daughter was down there with it.
で、その通りなのか。
Ozumi pressed Akiyuki.
それは。
Akiyuki could do nothing but mumble in response.
まだ足りないな。なぜ注目を浴びる必要があったのか、それを説明していない。
Probably because his daughter started killing, right? His daughter was fucking going crazy down there, started killing him, and that's why he wanted to end the operation, right? Because he actually had somewhat of a heart for his daughter. Because they're gonna bring out the fact that the young girl was that's right, because they even showed a scene of that before we find the girl's body. The fact that she had been strangled out beforehand, and like when we find the body, her neck's like caked in makeup, right? So she had been strangled out beforehand. That's why he wanted to draw attention to it. And then there was also the decomposing girl who had had her face stomped in. That's why he drew attention to it. That's why he finally wanted to end the operation, because his own daughter was starting to become a killer. Indeed. What had he accomplished by doing so?
事件が発覚し、あなたが逮捕され、監禁されていた少女たちが保護された。
逮捕されたかったってのか？
いや、おそらくその先の。少女たちが保護されることこそが目的だったのではありませんか?
Akiyuki hung his head once again in response.
おい、レイジ、どういうことだ？
監禁したのはナルコ夫妻で間違いないさ。あんな場所だからな。あなたは殺人について認めていません。
Akiyuki had nothing to say to that. Yup.
何か証拠はないのか？
最初の死体から出てきた証拠の中にまだ謎のままのものがある。
Yup. The neck. Makeup applied as far as the neck. 2 layers of strangulation marks found. Outer layer was made by rope, was created to hide the first strangulation marks. Yeah. Oh, I had forgot about the double marks. Yeah. There was a second layer of strangulation trying to cover up the first one, so they wouldn't figure out how it was originally. Yep.
ああ、締め跡が二重になっていたってやつか。死因は最初につけられたやつだが、結局なぜ後からつけたのかまだ不明だったな。
真犯人をかばうために削除痕を上書きしたのだろうさ。そうなれば犯人はおのずと明らかになる。
Indeed, it was. Yeah, that one was obvious from the jump. Where's her name? Manami Narako. Confined by her parents? Question mark.
娘をかばうためか。
Ozumi turned his eyes towards Akiyuki.
指の跡が残っていたんです。
Akiyuki finally spoke up after a pregnant pause.
死体を片付けるときにくっきりと。私も記者で事件を追っていたこともありますから。
娘を守るために 自分が犠牲になろうとしたってのか。
そうだと。
Talk about vague. Though covering for his daughter shed more light on the mystery, wasn't enough to unravel the whole truth of the case. So he wanted the girls to be rescued. But wait, why did he even lock his own daughter up to begin with? It would have been one thing if he'd put her down there half a year ago because he realized he couldn't stop her from killing people. But the Nauticos had reported Manami's disappearance years before that. So what did that mean? Well, I mean, that hadn't been Manami's first murder. Like, we do know that to be true. That wasn't Manami's first murder. Because of the decomposing girl down there that had her footprint on her.
もしかしてマナミさんはそれ以前にも事件を起こしているのではありませんか？
Everything added up if I was right, and that was why her parents had imprisoned her to begin with.
いいえ、それはありません。あの子はただ
暴れるったって。ああ、俺だってガキの頃は悪さして押し入れに閉じ込められたりもしたがよ。
An exasperated Uozumi shook his head.
マナミはそういうのとは違います。
Akiyuki weakly shook his head as well. Different was indeed a pretty apt term to describe the odd way she'd been acting when I found her in the depot yesterday. First I came to save her, yet she showed me nothing but enmity. Second, she lied to Ira and Haruka that I was there to kill them in an attempt to distance them from me. Wait, actually now that I have the benefit of hindsight, I don't feel like she was trying to pin any sort of crimes on me at all. No, it was more like she seriously was convinced I was a murderer.
娘は生まれつき脳の前頭葉に障害があるんです。
Oh,
その影響で両親の欠如が著しくなってしまって。
それで監禁したのですか？
Akiyuki silently nodded. I'd heard before that issues with the frontal lobe could lead to all sorts of disorders.
手術かなんかで治せなかったのか。
副作用が多いそうで踏み切れませんでした。投薬で抑えていたこともあったのですが。
それにしたってよ、大人の力にはかなわねえだろ。
Akiyuki shook his head.
抑えつけることはできますが、その場しのぎにしかなりませんでした。
So all the solutions are far easier said than done, huh?
娘さんを幽閉した理由については分かりました。ですがまだ
それは
今さらだんまりなんてわけにもいかねえだろ。娘に対する瞳悟空だったのか？
いえ、そんなことはなかったと思います。
Yeah, I kind of figured that was the case.
そう。
It's like he
マナミが
wanted her
一
to
人
have
ではつまらないと言い出
friends,
したんで
right?
す。
はあ？
Uozumi's shock wasn't unwarranted. What struck me as even crazier was how confinement had barely changed Manami at all. Did that only go to show how messed up she was in the head?
あの子の頼みは断れませんでした。閉じ込めているという負い目もあったのだと。
その時の詳しい状況を後で聞かせてもらうとしてだ。結局殺しちまったんだろ？
ええ。言うことを聞かなかったからいらないと言われました。たったそれだけのことで。
Jesus.
あの子は殺してしまうんです。
Akiyuki stared down at the table. His shoulders were quivering.
その時にやめちまえばよかったんだ。井戸三度。
おっしゃる通りです。二人目が亡くなった時に。
そこで折れちまったって。
申し訳ありません。
If nothing else, it showed he did love and care for his daughter. In a sick way, of course. And honestly, I was sure he'd been aware of how twisted the whole thing was. Even so, he just couldn't stop himself.
二人まとめてさらったのはなぜだ？2対1だったら殺されないとでも考えたのか？
いいえ、一人だけのつもりだったんです。それが見られていて。
たく、たまったもんじゃねえな。
Uozumi cursed and procured a
な
cigarette.
ぜあの子たちに目をつけたのですか？
なんとなくです。マナミより年下でおとなしそうな。
So they were just in the wrong place at the wrong time then. I didn't know whether or not to consider a silver lining that there hadn't been any more to it than that.
で、その後で河原に仏を捨てたと？事件に注目させるためだってな。
Because there's
目がちゃんとしてりゃ
それができなかったから止めてほしかったんだろう。そうじゃなければこんなに長引くこともなく。
その通りです。 マナミに死体が匂うから外に出してくれと頼まれ。
そう語る割にはあがいていたようですね。死体からマナミさんの手による痕跡を隠し、捜査を混乱させた。
He'd gotten in our way, even though us figuring out the truth should have been exactly what he'd wanted. Did he want to hide his daughter or protect her? Did he want to help us out or pin the crime on another? This guy had so many conflicting emotions and desires that all gotten jumbled together, leaving him unable to decide what he actually wanted. Though maybe it was stuff like that which made us human to begin with.
で、俺たちが無能揃いだから。
違います。そんなつもりは。
Akiyuki hastily shook his head. Now that I saw why he felt the need to get all flustered. If anything, that body had made things even worse for us by sending us on a few wild goose chases.
俺たちが真実にたどり着けないのを見て、本格的に別人へ罪をなすりつけようとした。
Since Naoto Kuroya had been in hiding close by, that'd make us think he'd been involved.
もっと、それであなたが遺棄したと。
Akiyuki had nothing to say to that.
レジ、
Uozumi tapped me on the shoulder.
お前さんは病院に行ってくれ。佐藤巡査だけじゃ荷が重いだろ。
I got up and gave Uozumi my chair.
いくらお前さんが殺してないって言っても、保護者としての責任は免れないからな。
I ambled out of the interrogation room as I heard the chair screech under Uozumi's weight. Okay, you didn't need to add that detail, Reiji. That's kind of rude.